What's up, everybody? Welcome to Dat Podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Lee, with my main man,
Heidi Lewis.
Todd Ginneman.
What's up, fellas? Y'all excited to be here?
I am excited, but you changed the name. We let you kind of open it up one time, and you changed the name.
Well, here's what I'm saying. You said I had some creative freedom, man. So how you gonna? I mean, you said, Steve, we'd like for you to open up.
Don't stifle the energy.
I mean, but he changed
Okay, so
the name.
I won't change the name to that podcast.
Okay,
but just the energy. Did you like?
Do they even know what's the podcast?
This is called Beards Reconciliation.
Theology.
It's Beards Theology and Reconciliation.
Come on, man.
See, that's why I don't let you open up the show. You see what I'm saying? That's the problem. So, man, do you want me to take this over?
Here's what I'm saying. Right. Tell folks why you're rocking the Detroit hat, the special place that Detroit has.
I'm just, I was so impressed with the city of Detroit.
Yeah.
I went back there a few months ago, and it just really captured my heart.
I feel like a blueprint.
No, seriously. Like, I remember coming back, and talking to my wife and saying, this is the only place that I feel like I would literally move from Atlanta to go to Detroit. But that's not a calling.
We'll do a satellite. We'll do a satellite.
I'm here. But no, seriously. Like when I went and I just saw the history, Motown. I saw kind of the separation. It captured my heart. Man. And I was like, not only do I want to send planters to Detroit, I want to go and help mobilize planters, because Detroit can be a place that is sending out missionaries across the country.
Man, I can tell that wasn't
passions there.
Oh yeah, it was there. It was there.
Here's what I like about Detroit. They have an NBA basketball team.
Yeah.
And an NFL team.
They both are indoors.
I've often said to my wife that I could only live in a city with an NBA basketball team. Detroit does have both, so I'm not.
But are you a Van Gundy fan though?
I don't mind Van Gundy.
He's kind of whiny a little bit.
He's a little bit whiny, but yeah, he's again a story comes to mind which I can't say because it's Van Gundy, but but Todd, your city, St. Louis,
no
Todd's
NBA
back.
team.
There's no NBA team.
You can't move there.
And there's no NFL.
Man, come on.
Team.
You know what I'm saying? It's like
the Rams. The Rams are gone.
They're barely NFL. They're kind of like NCAA.
Oh, the Rams. Okay, I forgot about the Rams.
They're not there though. They're in LA now.
In LA
with the other 4 teams that are in LA now.
Well, that's true.
Are you a little salty?
Nah, never. I mean, a little bit. I mean, it'd be nice to have NFL there.
So have you embraced like your?
Who's he gonna embrace?
I don't know.
We got baseball.
So you St. Louis.
Oh, you got St. Louis
Cardinals.
So, but here's the good thing about Todd. Some of y'all might say, "Hey, where's Jorge?" We've having some contract issues. We're still in negotiating with his agent. We feel like Todd did a really good job.
Yeah, we brought him back,
and so we're glad he's here. So y'all keep praying for Jorge.
At some point we're gonna have to get into the actual movement.
That's good. So I'm gonna hand. But how did you appreciate?
It was okay. I mean, a little rough, bumpy start, but you got it back.
I'm an energy guy, so I just
like the hype man.
Yeah, I didn't say that. I just said energy.
Okay, not hype man, energy guy. What's the difference between energy and hype?
Hype man is somewhat demeaning.
No talent. No talent.
It's demeaning. Like
that's your friend you put on.
It's a demeaning. Yeah. It's like, hey, there's the hype man. Yeah. So
Flavor Flav. I mean, did he kind of? Do you think Flavor Flav when you think?
Is that boy?
Yeah.
Nah, he's a hype man.
He's a hype man. No talent.
Skills.
He wore a big clock. Actually, next podcast I'm gonna find a clock.
Right. So you want to be a hype man?
No, I don't want to be a hype man. But I just there's a value. Everybody needs a hype man. Everybody needs a hype man.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and jump into
movement. All right.
So movement 5, we're talking about as a call to disciple making. And this really comes from the famous passage that when Jesus is going from city to city, village to village, healing every sickness and all the diseases. And instead of getting excited, he says that he was grieved. He felt compassion. Yeah. And he said because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. He turned to his disciples and he says, pray to the Lord of the harvest that he might send out more laborers for the harvest, because the harvest is plentiful, but it's the laborers are few. What I love about this verse is that in this passage you see Jesus saying that the problem is not the harvest, the problem is the lack of laborers. And so when we think about this, disciple making is the core of that. We've been talking about like having this to raise up more laborers, more indigenous laborers, and and so many of us are lacking. And and you even see the lack of disciple making, of indigenous disciple making in a lot of our strategies. Especially when it comes to church planning or things like, because we're always looking for someone to come from outside to come and save. But at some point we got to realize that the laborers are going to have to come from the harvest.
Sure.
Right? Like, there may not be a savior,
somebody,
this savior leader that's going to come in and save everything, but like, how do we find? And that's kind of what I want to see for Detroit. Like, not just about people going, but like, what does it look like to raise up laborers? There's so much rich history that came from there. Like, that's what we need to see. Is it's like indigenous leaders raised up. So the harvest is plentiful, but it's the laborers that are few.
Good,
so, I mean, what do you think is the number one problem from raising up indigenous leadership in our churches?
Well, I think it takes time, right? Like, it's not we live in a microwave culture, and we're talking about crockpot type stuff. There has to be a real burden for the area you're planting, and there has to be a desire to be consistent for a while, and to see people raised up through the local church, it's going to just take time. Walking with people, discipleship isn't linear. It's not just doesn't just progress smoothly. There's setbacks. There's holdups, and so it's just a commitment to a place and a people over time to see change happen.
And that's, Americans don't like any of that. Places, our people.
Sexy.
Are a long time. Like, those are three whammies. Right. Place, people, in a long time. Like, we want to be mobile. Transient, mobile, fluid. We want people to get in our way, and we definitely don't want it to take a long time. So what do we do about that? I'm gonna change hats because I'm indigenous to Atlanta, so gotta make sure I keep it.
You got everybody praying about
what I'm saying?
Detroit, though.
Like,
seriously,
you guys,
man.
like, we need to change it. Beards, hats, theology and reconciliation. See, because if you notice, I had to have my.
Because you got a hat.
I got hats.
But
I got hats. I just
don't
have no beard.
But here's what I'm saying, bro. Dog, I'm tearing up as you talk about Detroit, man. Like, I'm ready.
You ready to go?
All I hear is calling all the messengers. Calling all the
keep your day job.
messengers.
Singing is not it. But hey, I'm ATL. It's all about ATL. So I can't. I love Detroit. I want to see a movement taking place. I want indigenous leaders to be raised up from there. So let's just take a place like Detroit. Like, how do we, a city like Detroit or cities anywhere across the country, how do we go about cultivating indigenous leadership to raise up for the harvest?
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things that came to mind, even as you were sharing, Todd was sharing, is that I've often, as a leader, felt ill-equipped to develop leaders. Not from a standpoint of kind of woe is me, but I think sometimes the challenge of not having kind of a clear pathway for what's right or what's wrong. And I think one of the things, just very practical, just an encouragement for people out there that might be listening, is I think you've often said, do for one what you'd like to do for 100 or all or something like that. And so I found myself, even in our context, saying, well, Stephen, I don't have all the answers in terms of leadership pipeline, leadership pathway, but if I was 22 years or 23 years old, what would I hope that someone did for me? And so that might just mean inviting a person over. You've talked about discipling some guys, reading a book with them for a month, giving them particular topics to think about. And so I think it's at times that just kind of feeling stuck in the mud of not having, at times we don't have a template in places like Detroit for what does it look like to do that. And so just an encouragement to guys that start with what you know.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that started with what's interesting is that Jesus, when he says the harvest is plentiful, but it's the laborers that are few, you know what the first thing Jesus calls his disciples to do?
What's that?
Pray.
Pray.
Yeah. Pray to the Lord of the harvest. So you talk about slow.
Yeah.
You talk about feeling like we're not doing anything. But that was the very first thing
Let's pray.
that Jesus called them was to pray.
That's good.
Right? You know, and so when we talk about the starting point
That's good.
to disciple making in the city, where Jesus says the problem is the lack of laborers, not necessarily the harvest. To some degree, it's the lack of prayers. You know, that the prayer warriors, and I'm guilty of that. I'm a doer by nature. Let's go get it. Let's stop talking about it. Let's be about it type person. But I have to discipline myself to pray because it's not my natural bent or my natural inclination to pray. But that was the first thing that Christ calls us to do.
Yeah.
How important is that? And, you know.
Yeah, I think that the prayer piece is like. It's like leg day, you know what I'm saying? Like it's we think that we at times, especially people who are just like want to be out in the streets, want to be talking with people, want to be kind of that warrior mentality, is like, you love doing things that pay off quickly, or you see a pump go, you do some curls, you see a little bump there, and you feel excited about it, a vein pop out and you're ecstatic. But on leg day, it's like, man, you may not see growth, but you're building. But that is what builds strength and moves the most weight. And the same thing with prayer is, we think that the work that our hands can do is the most activity we can provide. But the reality is that our prayers are what move the most spiritual weight.
Yeah, that's good.
And so as we really get into it and begin to push that prayer aspect, the Lord uses that to cultivate our own hearts for the action, and then go before us to see those prayers answered as we're kind of thrust out into the harvest. So
no, that's really good. And and I love the prayer. It wasn't kind of one of those temporal prayers like one of those, hey Lord, just please help my city. It was like, pray to the Lord of the harvest, the sovereign Lord, that God would ekbalo us, that God would force us out, right? Yeah. That He would send out is the translation that they have. But I mean, it's this idea of force us out of our comfort, force us out of our ease, and it's just like, and what I love about that is that He said it doesn't. He's not saying like, don't allow it to be based upon my current motivation. Yeah, like just put me in a position where like I have no other choice. Yeah, yeah. You see that like first century church where Peter, brings this sermon, he brings the heat, people get saved, and they begin to have this really beautiful experience of like sharing with one another, eating together. And the draw can be right, like, this is where it's at. Like we found it. The thing we've been missing, that we found it. And the Lord just chose to throw persecution in the middle of that community, because it's like our natural bent is towards that comfort and that security, and He's like, this isn't the end of it. And so persecution comes in and literally thrusts them out and to take the gospel to the ends of the earth. Yeah. And so, but our natural bent is to just be just chill with each other. I mean, I think that's right on. And so we see the order, when we talk about the order, like a little simple order that we see in the scriptures right here, is that Jesus is grieved. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what goes back to that movement when He had this burden. He had compassion. He saw a need, and he understands that this is larger. Like, we need to bring others into this. He says, pray to the sovereign God to send out more laborers. Yeah. Right? And he says, and when you pray earnestly. Mm-hmm. Pray earnestly that God would force us out, put us in a position where we have to do ministry. And then what I love about it is in 10:1, he says, guess what, guys? God answered our prayers. That's good. And he says, and he begins to name each and every one of his apostles. And he says, and he called them apostles. And that word apostle means he sends them out with a specific purpose. Yeah. And so part of it is yes, we have to pray. Yeah. We got to pray earnestly, real earnestly, like we really want this thing to happen. And then we got to be open to God sending us. Yeah. Good, bro. And if we're going to make disciples in the city, we can't keep praying for someone else. Yeah. To make disciples in my neighborhood, on my block, or on my boulevard. But we have to be about and be willing to say, here I am, Lord. Yeah. Send me. So if we're talking about making disciples among wolves, we got to be willing to put ourselves on the front line.
Yeah, and go out
go out.
I don't have anything else, man. It's a mic drop right there.
Amen. All right, with the drop, the mic has been dropped.
Boom.
I'm about to flow.
No, please.
If you're not,
Don't let me go. Dat podcast, but it's not really Dat podcast because it's now Hats, Beards,
Hat Podcast.
Here's Reconciliation. We're hoping to get Jorge back, man.
yeah,
man.
we like you, Todd, but man,
It's all good, man. The beard is longer.
The beard
His beard
It's-
is.
and it's
yeah.
got the sheen on it. He's got the spray on the sheen he puts on
We'll
it.
see, man. We'll see if we can get him back.
That's
Y'all.
awesome.
So y'all be praying.
all right. We appreciate y'all.
All right.
Next time.
Peace.